How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to go over my planned league starter for the Season 4 Whispering Mist season here. They're making some pretty significant changes to the game itself, but this is a build that I feel is going to still be extremely strong because in the prior league it was already really strong, especially for a starter. You could really get it off the ground very easily without having to invest too heavily in gear in order to get there. So first things first, the gear itself, everything is going to basically be exactly the same. You're still just going to basically be trying to get yourself a corrupted marrow and a kingly armor right away. You should be able to self-drop one of these really early. They start dropping around like level 35 or so. Same with kingly armor, starts dropping around level 50. If not, you should be able to buy these on day one for just a couple FE. After that, when it comes to your gear, you are just going to be trying to get affliction effect on every single piece of gear that you possibly can, as usual. And then after you get that basically established and situated, then you are just going to be going for plus skill levels and reap sources, basically. You need to get around maybe 6 or 7 reap sources total from my testing. It's best about there. You don't really need more after that. So when it comes to your gear, again, you start off with all your gear. The most important stat is affliction effect, and then after that you start working on the reap and other sources. So I will be including a filter, a loot filter that you can use to start off to help you find your first gear that you're going to start off with, and then you will be basically able to transition into something different after that. So they have made some pretty significant changes in regards to some of the game stuff, which the biggest thing that you're going to see here is they are changing the way that the passive skill slots work. These are going to be changed to where we are going to have 4 passive skill slots total, but they will only be able to have 1 aura in them each. So instead of the aura stacking that we've been doing, you're only going to be able to have 1 of these in each single one. But the difference is going to be that your the difference will be that there is some new support gems or new support skills rather for these auras that will give you a ton of aura effect. So there's a new one called Malleable that will give you 58% aura effect on bosses. There's one aura amplification, gives you 18%. Stand as one will give you it's like what are the 20.5% per aura that you have on you. So we'll always have 4 auras on us because we do have 4 passive slots. And then there's a new one for reducing your mana called Disciplined. Stand as one now comes straight from the skill trader, so you can just get that for free now instead of needing to farm it. There is a precise version that's, I presume, going to come from Path of the Brave still. But you can see the new reservations have been adjusted accordingly because of the changes here. The tree that we uses 27% sealed mana. So you can see using all 3 of the aura effect supports, the new reservation costs are listed here. And then if you use only 2, it's listed here. What you can basically do is the new way that we're going to be setting it up is you will be running Energy Fortress and then just any 2 of these as your supports that are run on your mana, and then you'll use Seal Conversion on one of the other ones. When you use Seal Conversion on one of the other ones, it's going to bring it up to the 66% of your life will be reserved. But that's fine. I mean, you're not reserving as much as you used to. But because of this, we are going to be losing quite a bit of defenses. So if you are used to what we had before, they're making some pretty significant changes. I presume they're going to adjust the content to be according to this, because the resistances on gear are the new maximum resistance upper limit is going to be 60%. So they are changing that. They are lowering the amount of energy shield that you are getting from Energy Fortress slightly. It's going from like 945 to 600 something, but because you're getting like a free 137% aura effect for that, you are going to end up with more energy shield overall now than what you had before. but you are going to be giving up defensive skills because of it, because we used to be either running like an auto defense in here with a defensive skill, and then we had a defensive skill here, and then we had our curses on a trigger that was also in our passive skills. So because of that, if we do want to run a curse, we are going to need to basically give up a skill for it. So if you want to go with the more defensive option, you will be able to run Forced Start. But if you want to go with the more damage version, then you'll be able to run Mana Boil. So there's going to be some options to be made. This is going to be the one that I probably recommend. It's going to be this route here. You can run Mana Boil if you want, but the biggest other difference as well is we are going to have to actually deal with mana now as well, because of the fact that we can't just run Magical Source for free, basically, as we could before. So you are going to have to focus on mana earlier on. We probably will just basically early in leveling, you just won't be running Entangling Pain. You'll just be running the Compound Source or whatnot in order to get life and mana early on. Until you get your mana situation under control, you will end up putting these points into mana, and once you've kind of dealt with that and you have your mana under control, at that point you can drop these points and take the additional damage against Frostbitten enemies over here. If you have any specific questions about the mechanics of the build or how to level it, you can look over my prior guides. In regards to the character, I go over a little bit of the leveling for it. It's pretty much going to be the same. You are still just going to be leveling with Ice Lances and Frost Terra, and then around the mid to upper level 60s is when you'll actually swap to using Reap Purification instead of the Arcanist tree, or instead of the basically the self-casting damage tree that you are using. You'll move your points basically out of Arcanist and you'll move them into Psychic still in order to pick up Reap Purification, and then you'll just kind of go from there. I wouldn't recommend making this swap until you get Affliction on quite a few pieces of gear, as well as some of your Reap Purification sources, but I cover it more in detail in some of my older guides in regards to playing the build. But if you do end up having any questions, I will be streaming as well on launch. So if you have any questions, just feel free to pop in, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Or you'll be able to see kind of what I'm playing on the day. And then there will be a priority to get the gloves that give you a percentage of your mana back every time you use the skill. That will probably be the biggest focus in order to get as soon as possible. If they make it to where triggered skills don't use mana, and then we're able to actually get these triggered skill gems fairly quickly, then we might actually be okay. They might be able to avoid mana that way, but we're just going to have to play it by ear. This is basically what I'm going to create the build code with, just because I know this is going to be something that everyone can start with. And then if they need to make adjustments from there, we can make the adjustments on the fly. Again, I'll be streaming it, so if we need to make any changes from there, we can. In regards to the tree itself, the tree does go up to 24 points now required in the first tree in order to get this second talent here. So instead of going to 20 points, we are going to 24. So to accommodate for that, we are pushing this all the way to 28 points just to get these focus blessings and additional damage against frostbitten enemies here. And then because of that, we are just taking a little bit of points out of psychic here in order to do that. So leveling will be the same. Like, you're still going to be leveling with like Spell Burst and Ice Lances and Frost Terra, which is what I leveled with last league in the preseason. All that's going to be the same. Ice Lances even got buffed, so that's going to be really, really nice. From that, we don't have to worry about too many things. All the leveling is going to be even easier than it was before, because it's an even shorter campaign now as well. And we no longer get our resistances reduced along the way, so I'm not anticipating any issues there. They are even making an adjustment to one of the things here to make it to where you are getting things to where you are automatically going to be freezing enemies whenever you are encountering them for the first time. You're going to hit an additional 100 frostbite on them, so that should actually help with clear early on as well. In regards to the slates, things are still going to be the same. Curtain has been basically removed from the game. It no longer restores the missing life and energy shield, so you're not going to be worrying about that anymore. We're not going to be running versatile anymore because we're no longer running cast on crit. So you're just going to basically be running some sort of offensive option if you can get one. If not, you're just going to be going for more slates with either, again, affliction effect, some plus levels to persistent skill levels, or just your standard thing with a reap source or some reap cooldown recovery speed, things like that. Other than that, blur is getting... there's some new items for blur that are making it even stronger. With the other defensives that we are losing, blur is going to be even more sought after, so I highly recommend making sure you go for this and try to get yourself a slate with a blur source on it, because it's going to come in handy with the lost defensive sources that we are getting. Yeah, outside of that, in regards to the tree, we've made some adjustments here because we will no longer be running this with cast on crit. We will be able to basically run this instead. Speed up formation will probably get turned into whatever the trigger source is. Like if that activation skill, that's what we're going to want to be running, is basically putting this on a trigger. And then frigid transmission might get changed into savage charge or something like that, just if we are trying to go with like a 0 button gameplay and just kind of let everything automate itself. But I'm going to go ahead and get this sent up here. And what you can see here, basically what I've gotten or what I've calculated is the damage difference based off of the changes that they've made. We are losing. If you give up Mana Boil and you run a defensive skill, we're losing about 25% of our damage. If you run Mana Boil, we're losing about 18% of our damage. So it's not going to be that big of a deal with the adjustment to the maximum hit damage being no longer capped at 100 million or 100 billion rather. Our damage will probably still end up going up because of that, because a lot of the builds were already bypassing that cap already. So we might not actually feel the difference at all. We're really just going to have to play it by ear. I think we're going to feel the defensive differences more so than everything else. But the adjustment to Reap Purification to where it only reaps 60% of the remaining Reap instead of 80%, which means we're losing 25% overall damage from this. If you look at the examples here, that's where we get it. The rest of the things, you can see the calculations here. I'll share this link as well, along with the loot filters and the build codes, things like that. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. And other than that, see you in the next one.